Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I cover things about movies and TV shows, all about your favorite pop culture icons, filling you in so that you have more knowledge on your favorite heroes, villains, games, and movies. Today we're going to be telling you the story of Venomized. Now, this is picking up where the last storyline, Poison X, left off, and I'm going to link that down below. But just so you have a quick recap, in case you may have forgotten our video last week or you're just jumping in today, Venom and the X-Men went into space, discovered a whole bunch of other symbiotes, got them to bond with the X-Men, they then unbonded with them, and they found an enemy known as Poison, and Poison was going to be invading Earth. They've gone back to warn everyone, this is that storyline. As Eddie and the others quickly race back to Earth, things back on Earth continue to remain quiet. But one day, as Eye-Boy looks out across the school grounds of the Xavier Institute, he notices a familiar group of people walking towards the campus. His friend Bling says that it looks like the X-Force, but something's not right. Eye-Boy tells her that she's just worrying too much. Watch! Hey there! What are you? But before he could finish, he's blasted to the ground, and a poison-infected Cable tells the others, "Alright, the mansion is full of mutants that are ripe for the taking. Let's go get them." Bling runs over to Eye-Boy to see if he's okay, but as she reaches out, something begins to cover Eye-Boy, and he screams out in pain. As panic spreads throughout the school, Kitty Pryde steps out of her office asking why the hell is there shouting. When she looks down the hallway, she sees Cable walking towards her and the rest of the X-Force shooting the students. Cable readies his rifle, pointing it right at Kitty, and as he fires, he ends up hitting a student running by trying to get to safety. Kitty catches the student, telling her that she's going to be okay, but then a green substance begins to cover her as she calls out. Kitty releases the student, stating that they're guns. They're firing! But just then, Nightcrawler teleports in some of the other X-Men, and Old Man Logan pops his claws, shouting, "Symbiotes!" Several more shots go off, hitting Logan and Colossus, fusing the symbiotes to them as well. The three look at their new suits, and Colossus says, "Boise moi!" And Kitty says, "Yeah, he can say that again." Over in Midtown, Spider-Man fights back at a poison-infected Punisher, asking, "What are you supposed to be, an evil cyborg from the future? A Halloween decoration brought to life? Come on!" The Punisher doesn't say anything, and Spider-Man webs up his guns, telling him, "Look, I know you look like the Punisher, but you seem like a cheap knockoff." Spider-Man whips the gun out of the Punisher's hands, and the Punisher reaches back, grabbing a fistful of grenades, tossing them into the air, hitting Spider-Man. Spider-Man lands, and as he stands up, he sees that he is now bonded with a symbiote. Spider-Man asks, "What just happened?" And Punisher tells him, "The fight's over, Webhead. You lost. You may not realize it, but you serve the Hive now." However, Spider-Man is not the only hero to run in with the poison. Countless others try to fight back, only to be shot with the poison symbiote guns. Back in the alleyway, Spider-Man jumps up, webbing Punisher's head, as Punisher tells him, "You should use this time to make peace with your loved ones, Aunt May, Mary Jane Watson." As Spider-Man pulls back, he asks, "How do you?" But Punisher reaches back, slamming Spider-Man into the ground, stating, "You're not the first Spider-Man to join our ranks." He then turns and begins to walk away, and Spider-Man shouts, "Wait!" And then he sees more of the symbiote grenades lying on the ground. He scoops them up and webs off, stating that he's been attacked by a lot of things, but never by an actual symbiote. He needs to get this thing off immediately. He sees a church bell and he swings up, telling the symbiote that he can't hear them if they're in there, but trust him, this is gonna hurt. He punches the bell, creating a loud ring, and the symbiote begins to panic and pull apart. As Spider-Man falls to his knees, he shouts, asking, Why isn't the symbiote separating?" Over at the Ravencroft Institute for the Criminally Insane, the infected Morbius leads a group in search of the anomaly. Morbius picks up a guard, stating that they're not here for him, but if he can save him some time, he'll be spared. Where is the anomaly? The guard struggles to breathe, but he says he has no idea what they're talking about. He can't tell them. But Morbius bites into the man's neck and throws him to the ground, stating that Black Cat's intel was solid. He must be here. A few moments later, in Cletus Cassidy's holding cell, he looks up when he hears someone coming through the doors. Morbius looks at him, telling him that this is just the host body. Suffered a terrible injury. Pitiful. Cletus shouts, telling them, "Just come and take a closer look then. I got something for you. Then we'll see who's pitiful while you choke on your own blood." Morbius tells the others that this is perfect. Not only is the anomaly here, but his bloodlust is as insatiable as ever. He doesn't even have his own symbiote. Meanwhile, just above the city, Eddie and the young X-Men speed towards the school. But as Hank pulls on the controls, he yells the trip through space was too much. There's been too much damage to danger. They've lost all control. Across the city, the symbiote-bonded Thor and Hercules see the jet, and they fly up to slow down the jet's descent. Hercules lands on the back of it, creating a series of webs to try and slow it down, and then suddenly, it stops. A voice says, I can take it from here. And Magneto floats before everyone with his team. Once the jet is set on the ground, the hatch opens, and as Spider-Man sees Eddie, he yells, I should have guessed! What have you done, Eddie? Eddie tells him that he was trying to get back to Earth to warn them, but clearly we're a little too late. Elsewhere, the infected Thanos and Doom walk through the corridors, and Thanos asks, how is the anomaly? Doom says that he was surprisingly eager at first, but his blood, which still holds traces of a previous symbiote, resists. If nothing else, he provided an excellent test subject. However, if we manage to purge the previous symbiote out of his system and bond him with one of ours, Carnage will be born anew. As the door opens before them, Cletus sits strapped to a chair, screaming as a symbiote is being forcibly bonded to him. And he's yelling out, It hurts! It hurts! Get it off of me! Back out on the street, Spider-Man punches into Eddie, and Eddie asks, Is this how it's going to be? Hank calls out to everyone to just settle down, but Spider-Man then asks, There's a symbiote invasion and I'm supposed to believe that Venom has nothing to do with it? Eddie shouts to Hank to just step aside. This is going to happen. As the two of them lunge at each other, Magneto lifts them both up, telling them, I think not. You will stand down and offer me an explanation. Scott runs up stating that they tried to get here before the creatures. Those creatures, the poisons, use alien symbiotes to steal people's powers, and Eddie adds, not just their powers, but their memories, their bodies, and everything. They'll strip you of your symbiotes and eat you alive to fuel their transformation into something new. Monsters loyal only to the Hive. I've encountered them once before. Magneto then asks, then surely you must know a cure, right? If we simply remove, Spider-Man says, I already tried. These symbiotes are different. They've been altered. They seem to resist sonic vibrations. Eddie then says, resist? Then no, there is no cure. The poisons want people with powers to be able to bond permanently with the symbiotes. Jimmy looks around asking, wait, where's Jean? And Scott says as they got her, she's gone. He can still hear her screaming in his mind. Magneto begins to gather up his powers, stating that the poisons attacked the Xavier Institute. If they want people with powers, they'll not soon forget the young mutants they found there. They must get this new information to Kitty Pryde so that they can get her students to safety, so they may have a time to devise a plan of a counterattack. Eddie says, I might know a place where we can all hold up. If nothing else, they've got experience with symbiotes. A short while later at the Alchemex Industries, Kitty shouts to Dr. Steve that she doesn't need to be reasonable. He can go ahead with his test, but her and her students are staying out here. Dr. Steve begins to state that he would like to remind them that they are the ones who came to Alchemex for help, and Kitty yells that she doesn't care what they think is the best course. She knows about Alchemex and how it used to be just Oscorp. Just being here makes her skin crawl, so she would kindly ask them to remove these aliens from her students now. As Kitty points her finger at Dr. Steve's face, he tries to speak again, but Magneto tells him that he believes that Miss Pryde's decision is final. Dr. Steve sighs, stating, I guess. A short while later, in Dr. Steve's lab, Spider-Man holds out his arm as the machine attempts to remove the symbiote, and Dr. Steve says that this is remarkable. The science behind the modifications of the symbiote's physiology is just insidious and ingenious. Spider-Man tells him, great, glad we can appreciate the mad science behind all of it, but can we get this off now? I'd rather not be permanently fused to a monster. Eddie then asks, did you ever consider that the monster doesn't want to be hooked up to you either? There's a reason the poisons hobbled the symbiotes. If the Clintar had a choice, they would get as far away from you as possible. Spider-Man begins to yell back, but Liz Allen shouts, hey, can we just save this for a day when we're not under an alien invasion? And to answer Spider-Man's question, we're not sure if there's really a way to pull the symbiote off. Steve has tried fire and sonics with no success. Dr. Steve then says that there are, however, other avenues worth exploring. And a voice then says, hey fellas, Agent Anti-Venom reporting for duty. Eddie yells, no, hell no! There's no way that I'm gonna stand by while he kills these creatures. As Eddie storms towards Flash, Spider-Man stops and telling him, look, I can almost understand what you're saying, but we both know what one of these aliens can do. It's never good. Meanwhile, over at the terraformed island of Mu, the infected Spider-Woman makes her way to the home of Kai Kawati, the young Inhuman known as Kid Kaiju. As she opens the door, she's greeted by a small robot named Herbie, and he tells her that he is sorry, but Kai isn't here. He does have a pre-recorded message to give her, though. Elsa Bloodstone's voice comes on, and after a long censored rant about how she would have loved to have been there to meet them, they should try and have a nice day. A second later, the entire house explodes, blowing Spider-Woman and her team to pieces, and as the infected Groot's tendril splatters down, a heavy boot stomps on it. Elsa looks at the fire, stating, well, now that that's sorted, and then a voice from behind her calls out that they wouldn't count on it. Elsa turns back to see the infected Blade and his team, and Blade goes on stating, we know who you are, and you'll tell us where you've hidden Kid Kaiju. Elsa laughs, telling him, that's the thing! When you give a kid an amulet to teleport anywhere in the world, you sometimes don't know where he's going. Over in New York City, a portal opens up and Kai jumps out, stating, sorry, Elsa, I know this isn't part of the plan, but... He runs down the alleyway and he sees everyone running, and a man stops him asking what is he doing just standing there. He needs to get out of here. There's an invasion. Over Over on the bridge, the newly symbiote-bonded D-Man and Rage hold the line against Killer Thrill, who just made a return from space. D-Man punches into Killer Thrill, stating, "Giving us these suits is a big mistake on their part." And Rage then steps up, knocking Killer Thrill down, stating that there's too many of them. It's only a matter of time before they overrun us. D-Man tells him, "Nah, we got it, just look in the sky." A second later, Captain America, along with his team of half symbiote-bonded heroes, jumps in, stating that if these monsters wanted to fight, we're happy to accommodate. Killer Thrill laughs loudly, stating, "It's cute how you think you're being rescued, but you're way off. This is what we wanted. This is the main course." Killer Thrill holds up her arm as a swarm of lesser poisons start to crawl out, and Nova asks, "Why does it look like they're happy to see us?" As the lesser poisons latch onto D-Man and Rage, Killer Thrill says, "That's it, little ones. Feed and feast, and don't forget the others. They're ripe too." Cap watches, stating, "Those smaller creatures. Their touch transformed them." Nova quickly tries to pull the symbiote that was attached to him off, stating, "These suits are putting us at risk. We need to get these things off now." Just then, one of the lesser poisons grabs onto Thor, and as Hercules screams out to her, the infected Thor shouts out, "Thy doom, thy rebirth is upon you, so speaks the goddess of thunder." Cap yells to Thor that she can fight, but the poison within says that this person is sick and weak. "Now we will use her to crush your bones so that we can embrace and heal." As Thor holds her hammer up, she loses her grip, and Mjolnir falls to the ground. Thor asks why, and Cap tells her it's because she's unworthy now. "Now everyone hit them hard. We want these things off the bridge." Miss Marvel calls out that they need to get the civilians clear, otherwise they won't be able to cut loose and finish these guys off. However, just as she says that, she's shot in the back by the lesser poisons, attaching a symbiote to her body. While the fight continues, Thor suddenly stops as Jane Foster rips her out of the poison's grip, falling to the ground. Hercules watches, stating, "Thor, she's broken free of her armored shell." And Falcon says that it must be when she let go of the hammer that she was able to change back into her mortal form. Back over at Alchemex, Scott screams as he begins to hear Jean's voice in his head, stating that she is here on Earth. She's come back! A few moments later, the infected Jean floats down onto the bridge, stating, "I found you." Hercules grabs a car, throwing it, but Nova blasts it before it can hit anything, stating, "We can't just crush our friends with cars." Ben Grimm tells Cap that they can't win this fight. They are hopelessly outnumbered and outmatched. And Cap says, "There are too many innocent bystanders here. We're not going to abandon them. We're going to stay here and give them time to get out. If that means we die trying, then that's what we're going to do." Over at Alchemex, Spider-Man says that these symbiotes are dangerous. If there was another way, maybe it's either us or them. Eddie shouts, asking, "Are you kidding me with this? The Clint are our prisoners. The poisons are using them." Flash breaks the two of them up, stating, "I'm all for a good Hail Mary play, but we need a plan. The poisons are hitting us where it hurts the most. We need to find the cache so we can either destroy or rescue the symbiotes. Either way, we're gonna put the hurt back onto the poisons." Eddie looks at the monitor and sees Moon Girl and says, "No. How about we gain some intel first? We're going to need something to interrogate." Back over on the bridge, Cap yells to the others, "Sound off!" But Killer Thrill knocks him in the face, asking, "Did you lose some of your cuddle buddies?" As the civilians run away, some are picked up by the small bugs, and a loud voice shouts, "Scream, beauty humans! Scream with the relief of being swept away to safety! The awful scrag demands that you live long and happy lives! Eat your vegetables! Call your mothers!" Kai sits on the shoulder of one of his kaiju creations, stating, "It looked like you needed a hand down there." Killer Thrill yells to Hyperion that the kid's what they're looking for. "Get him!" Hyperion rockets into the sky towards Kai, but as he gets close, another kaiju, Aegis, grabs him, squishing him mid-flight, stating, "I got this." In another part of the city, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Moon Girl fight back another wave of poisons when Devil Dinosaur is shot with a symbiote gun. The symbiote begins to cover Devil, and Lunella shouts, "Hey, is he still with us?" A group of lesser poisons begin to run towards Devil Dinosaur, but as they get close, they're suddenly shot from above. Flash says that if they could, please step away from the T-Rex. And as everyone lands, Flash grabs onto the Punisher's head, stating, "Sorry about this, but it might sting." A second later, Punisher's body begins to twitch as he screams in pain and falls apart into a pile of liquid on the floor. Flash stares, stating, there's nothing inside. What the hell did I just do to him?" Meanwhile, up in space, another poison says that the second anomaly, the one called Kid Kaiju, allowed the heroes to escape. More troubling, there is now a third anomaly, one that we've never encountered in any other reality, called Anti-Venom. His touch is caustic to our kind. Thanos then says, "Then he must too be destroyed." A voice calls out from behind that they have trackers in the symbiotes, right? Just let old Cletus Cassidy carve him up real nice. Leave him bleeding and squealing, ripe for the picking. Doom looks back at a shade of his mother. Thanos looks back at a shade of death. And Cletus yells, "All right, let's do this!" Back on Earth, Scott runs into Dr. Steve's lab, yelling that he knows where they are. Jean's still alive. She's in a poison ship that's in orbit. She's trying to communicate with them. And Eddie tells him, "No, she isn't. Jean Grey is gone. We've been over this. She's dead." Scott says that maybe she's able to resist the influence of the poisons. Maybe she is fighting them off. Eddie tells him, no, she's not. The poisons use psychic lures to help grab their victims. They might be using her psychic connection for Jean to draw us out. But if we are in communication, they may not have any other choice but to use anti-venom. Flash steps in, stating, no way. I'm not gonna let you use me as a weapon. My anti-symbiote properties aren't supposed to kill people, and when I touched that poison, the way he screamed, there was a person inside of that thing and I just murdered him. Eddie shouts, we don't have time for this. It won't be long before they get someone like Lunella who can control monsters, and when that happens, just then there's a loud explosion, and in the next room, Carnage leads his assault on the facility. Eddie looks back at Scott yelling, this is because of him. He said the girl wasn't alive. And Scott says, it couldn't have been me. Lunella then says that they have other things they need to be worrying about right now. And in the next room, Kitty begins to guide her students out, but Jimmy stays back, telling everyone, get clear. I can't hold these things back forever. Kitty tells him to wait, but soon Eye-Boy is struck from behind by a lesser poison. Nightcrawler begins to grab who he can, teleporting them out, and soon Jimmy too is caught off guard by the poisons. He stands back up, stating, all this time in this world, so lost, but now the Hive has given me purpose. Magneto tells him, I'm sorry, but I couldn't protect you. Devil Dinosaur begins tearing through the crowds, but suddenly he disappears, and Lunella yells what just happened, with Kid Kaiju calling out, don't sweat it, I just sent Devil somewhere safe. Now we're here to do the same for the rest of them. As Kai's creatures begin dropping Cap and the others down into the battlefield, Kai runs to a corner and begins to draw. Killer Thrill looks through the wall, stating, well, looks like you've brought your little anomaly right here into the feeding frenzy. Kai looks at her smiling, telling her, sure, but I'd like you to meet some of my friends, Goom, Goomdula, and Gorgilla. While Kai's creations then join the fight, he looks at his amulet as Lunella says that if they bring Devil back, he can definitely. Kai drops the amulet into Lunella's hand, stating, I'm sorry, but I'm sending you away too. As Lunella fades away, Spider-Man asks, are you sure about this? You can sit this one out. And Kai tells him, I better not. Someone's got to save the day. Soon, everyone loads into their jets to make their escapes, and once they get into the air, Cap tells everyone to hang on. Something's coming their way. A second later, Thanos himself crashes through the Quinjet, sending the cockpit spiraling into the ground. As everyone falls out, those with symbiotes create webs to help land it. And as Cap gets up from the wreckage, he says that they may have survived, but I'm feeling like that was their plan. Flash grabs his gun, stating, I might not want to hurt someone who was once a friend, but I never liked this guy. He jumps in, shooting at Thanos, and then the lesser poisons begin to jump onto his back. A second later, they crumble away, and Flash says, sorry, but I'm immune to your charms. This is gonna hurt. A lot. Thanos blasts Flash into the ground, telling him, yes, it will. After knocking the rest of the heroes away, Thanos talks up to Kai, telling him, at last. And then a voice shouts to Thanos, telling him, not so fast, little guy. A giant fist punches next to Thanos, and Scrag says, the mighty Scrag demands you surrender peacefully. Thanos then looks up at the Kaiju, stating, at last, my mistress will be so pleased. The Kaijus begin to beat down on Thanos, and as they do, one of the poisons appear from behind, starting to unload their clip into Scrag. Scrag screams out, the mighty Scrag feels powerful! And Kai yells, no, they got Scrag! But before Kai could call him back, Scrag lets out another scream. As the poisons take over, Scrag says, the mighty Scrag has been made whole! Kai looks back at his sketchbook, stating, I can fix this, just hang on! And Flash tells him, I'm sorry, it's no use. That monster of yours, it's gone. Meanwhile, up in space, Hyperion and the other poisons begin to focus in on Eddie's ship. But as Hank tries to dodge the oncoming blast, one of their engines is hit. Hank tells everyone to hang on to something, and he crashes their jet right into the poison cruiser. Eddie knocks the door off, stating, all in all, that wasn't your worst landing. As everyone gets out, Eddie asks Scott if he can hear Jean, and he says no, she's gone silent. He then says, well, we knew this might have been a trap. And Cletus calls out, it is Daddy! Suddenly, one of the poisons is hit with an optic blast, and as Eddie looks at Scott, Scott says, I'm not a big fan of magic. Eddie tells everyone to go on and shut these things down. Spider-Man and him will take care of Carnage. As Scott leads Hank and Bloodstorm down the hallway, she asks, you guys know that even if we're successful, we likely won't survive. Scott tells her that his fate is already set. He's been looking down the barrel of imminent death since he got here. Just then, Scott feels a psychic pulse, and he says that he knows where Jean is. The three of them turn the corner, and he sees Jean, but something's different. She's not infected. He shouts, it's her! It's really her! I thought we lost you! And Hank asks, who is he talking to? Because that's not Jean, that's the Goblin Queen. Bloodstorm floats down seeing someone else and says that they're being deceived. It's the lures that Venom warned us about. Meanwhile, down on Earth, Scrag begins attacking the heroes, and Aegis asks, what's wrong, buddy? What's gotten into you? Flash jumps down onto Scrag's back, stating that the creature is too powerful to let loose. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. He thrusts his arms into Scrag's back, and as he does, Scrag screams out in pain as his body begins to break apart. Kai shouts at them to stop, but Scrag looks at Kai and tells him, Kai Kawandi, the awful Scrag loves you. And just then, another of the kaijus begins to breathe fire down on Scrag until there's nothing left but ash and bone. Back in space, Cletus shouts, "Look at this! Spider-Man and Venom together again and still outclassed." Cletus reaches out, grabbing Eddie by the neck, and as he squeezes, Spider-Man jumps down around the side of him, telling him to hold on. As Spider-Man reaches out, Cletus releases a set of spikes from his back, impaling Spider-Man. Eddie breaks free, grabbing onto Cletus' head, shouting to the others to tell Danger to open up the force field that they have blocking the hole where they crashed. Danger tells them that the X-Men do not need to issue that command, they only need to hold on to something. As the hole opens up, Cletus and Spider-Man are sucked through, and Venom yells, "I'm sorry, Spider-Man, just hang on while I get the kids." Back with the other three, they all fall onto the ground, holding their heads, screaming, and Bloodstorm manages to state, "It must be Jean doing this." Jean walks up to them, stating, "Actually, it's not." Doom then says the Hive acts through them, and she sees them as their gifts. The Queen herself wanted the pleasure of killing them. Scott shouts to Jean to snap out of it, and in a moment of hesitation, she begins to think clearly. She asks Scott, as the Queen, what is she doing? Jean begins to break through the poison hold, and as Doom runs up to stop her, Eddie grabs him, stating, "The two of us are just gonna wait and see how this plays out." As the last pieces of poison fall off of Jean, Jean says that she's had enough of the poisons, enough of their queen. She is shutting them all down. She's taking everyone back and ending them right here and now, but first, suddenly all of the poisons across space and Earth that are connected to the Queen begin to scream as Jean destroys their connection to the Hive. Soon those infected with poison begin to fall apart, and Scott asks if it's really her. She releases her psychic hold, stating, she thinks so. Her body is gone, but her mind remained. She felt it buried in that thing, held on for as long as she could. She's not even sure if she's human anymore. But without saying another word, Scott grabs her and hugs her. Once the Queen is dealt with, Angel flies out recovering Spider-Man, and when he gets onto the jet, he asks, "Where's Carnage?" Eddie tells him, "Shut up for once and let the symbiote heal you a bit." He then looks at Jean, stating, "It's good to see Red back." After returning to Earth, Dr. Steve worked with those bonded with the symbiotes and managed to remove them and safely return the Clintar to their home planet. But even with the Queen gone, there are still some poison who survived the fall. However, next time, they'll be ready. Back on the island of Mu, Kai uses his kaiju to rebuild his home. But as things are finished, a small bug flies up, yelling, "Scrag! Scrag! Scrag!" There you have it, guys. The Poison X storyline combined with the Venomized storyline is complete. Now, this all is in proper continuity for current Venom storylines, and we are catching you up to the current issues in which, Venom fights the god of symbiotes, and Venom has a bunch of babies that go and attack and kill a bunch of people. Doesn't that sound interesting? If you think that's interesting, then you should consider subscribing to our channel, because that's where we do things like this. We keep you up to date on movies, TV shows, and comic books. So, yes, subscribe to our channel. We'll keep you up to date with the next Venom story coming out next week. And don't forget to give this video a like to tell me you want more Venom storylines. And if you want to talk more directly with me and the rest of the team here about your favorite comic books or your favorite video games or your favorite movies, join us over at twitch.tv/eligiblemonster every Sunday, Monday, and Thursday when we bring you various podcasts at about 2 p.m. Eastern before playing video games like Warframe. There you go. See you over there, or I'll see you next time right here at Comicstorian.